You believe in Jesus? Yes, I do. Well, you're going to meet him.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Backtrack Cinema, and in this video, we are continuing our Death Wish review series. We are reviewing Death Wish 2. So get a drink, get some popcorn, and let's talk about Death Wish 2.
Goodbye.
Death Wish 2 was released in 1982, directed by Michael Winner and starring Charles Bronson, Jill Ireland, and Vincent Gardenia. What's going on, everyone? My name is Jason, and welcome back to Backtrack Cinema. This is where we talk movies from the past that you love and want to see. Alright guys, so we are on the Death Wish 2, going through the Death Done and Dirty series, going through Dirty Harry films and Death Wish all together at once and doing some rankings after we're done. So I did Death Wish 1, had a good time doing that, talking about how gritty and how of a character study that first Death Wish movie was. But then we get Death Wish 2, and yes, this movie is basically your straight up revenge flick with Charles Bronson in it doing what he does. I didn't find this movie as interesting. I still had an okay time with it. I think this movie could have been a lot better. And there's quite a span from 1974, the first Death Wish, to 1982. And in that time, I mean, Charles Bronson did some, he did some good movies after Death Wish. Like he did Breakheart Pass and Breakout. Hard Times. Hard Times is absolutely one of my favorites. A Great Depression fighting kind of movie, like a street fighting kind of movie. And then, of course, in the 80s, had that long run with Cannon Films, like I've talked about, doing some of these Death Wish movies and doing Messenger of Death and Evil That Men Do and Death Hunt and Murphy's Law and so many movies, these B-movie action kind of movies that really fit Charles Bronson's personality, bringing that tough guy image to these kind of films that Cannon was known for. So architect Paul Kersey once again becomes a vigilante when he tries to find the 5 street punks who murdered his daughter and housekeeper, this time on the dark streets of Los Angeles. So yeah, we got Paul Kersey living in Los Angeles now. He's still an architect. He's found a new lady, so he's engaged to this woman. Things are going good in his life. He visits his daughter a lot, and his daughter is getting better. She's not catatonic, but she's still in a very child state of mind. And I think this is the first issue with the film, is that daughter gets raped, she gets murdered, but she gets murdered in such a weird way. She just, after they rape her, she just runs out the window and falls onto a fence pole and impales herself, essentially, right? And I just didn't care about this character, so essentially I didn't care about what was going on with Charles Bronson as much as I did in the first movie. And what a sequel is supposed to do, it's supposed to be a darker movie, and I found this movie wasn't as dark. Yes, they amp up the rape, they amp up the blood, they amp up the violence. That character study and that descent into this vigilante was not as done well in this one. They needed to go further with it. They needed to show more consequence with Paul Kersey. He loses his fiance over his quest on vengeance and all this kind of stuff, but it's not executed very well, I find. And like I said before, I don't find I care as much. They needed to reestablish the connection between him and his daughter. And I think what they should have done, have his daughter living a somewhat normal life again. I mean, I felt more over the housekeeper when the housekeeper was getting raped and stuff like that. And we talk about the rape. The rape is gratuitous in this. There's just too much of it. You don't need to show all scenes like that. You don't need to show right in your face rape. You can imply a lot of the stuff and it can have the same effect. I think it's just thrown in there just to shock people, and it's just very gratuitous for me. It's exploitive. They need to establish that connection between him and his daughter. Have her maybe Paul's taking her to get her apartment. She's out there living, and maybe explain why her husband took off. They don't ever explain any of that, but have her living, maybe getting her first apartment. She's on her own again. She's somewhat living a normal life again. And then have it happen. Then it happens all over again, but you've reestablished the characters and their connections again. And I think that would have worked better. And you get a more focused revenge story in this. What happens is they steal these bunch of punks. He's going to get ice cream. They steal his wallet, so they know where he lives. Because he fights back, they go back to his place and they rape his housekeeper. They kidnap his daughter. Then they end up raping her, which causes her to kind of kill herself, essentially. When she tries to get away, jumps out of a window. I think the thugs are a bit more meaner. They're a bit more vicious. He actually gets revenge on the exact people who did these crimes, not like the first one. So it's a more focused revenge story. There's some of the action sequences are good. I think there's some choppy editing here and there where things seemed choppy. You know what I mean? Like quick cuts and stuff like that. But I think some of the shootouts are pretty good in this. One near the end where the cop from the first movie is hunting down Paul Kersey again, and he ends up like kind of saving Paul Kersey. But there's some cool shootout scenes. One where Charles Bronson shoots a guy and he puts a stereo up to his face, and the stereo explodes, and then you see blood all everywhere, and that's a pretty badass scene. Like, Charles Bronson's still badass in it, and it still has that iconic music from the first one with these really eerie screeches and stuff. And we also get the soundtrack being put together by Jimmy Page, which is kind of cool. And apparently this movie was supposed to be in San Francisco, but I think for budget restraints they had to do it in LA. That would have been cool to see the vigilante in San Francisco. I'm not gonna lie, the aesthetic of San Francisco and all that would have been really cool. And I kind of like when Paul's the vigilante in this. He kind of rents this really slummy apartment just to put his gun in, so it kind of draws the attention away from him. And this is where he changes, kind of, and he puts a toque on, so when he's the vigilante, that's like his costume, as if he's this anti-superhero. And he really is an anti-hero, right? But it's almost like his get-up, you know what I mean? Like the way Indiana Jones dresses. Well, Paul Kersey, he goes out there with this little like tweed jacket and a toque on, and it's cool. It's really cool. But the movie just falls flat for me in a lot of ways. Like, it's just retreading the first one, but not doing it half as good. Not even half as good. And some of these one-liners he says, Charles Bronson, they just don't come off very good. They're very flat because the tone they're going after is very serious, like the first movie. But they're giving him these lines that they're hard to deliver of these tones. Like when he sees the guy with the cross on his neck and he goes, "You believe in Jesus? Well, you're going to meet him." That's it. He blows him away. They needed to write better lines from you. Like, you could have said something like, have the thug going, "Oh, forgive me. And instead of "God forgives, I don't." Something a bit more. Just something like that. Or where he blows another guy away, he just says goodbye. I just find the lines fall flat, and Charles Bronson's delivery is not exactly... I've seen him deliver better lines from other movies before, and I just find the writing and the execution, everything was just not there on this film. But yeah, guys, Death Wish 2 kind of falls flat for me. I find it's just retreading what we saw in Death Wish 1, but not as much character development and just not executed well. So guys, I'm going to give Death Wish 2 a C. It's a cold day in cinema for me. I was expecting more. But what about you guys? What do you think of Death Wish 2? Does this film work for you? Or are you like me? It doesn't work for you as much. Let me know in the comments and we'll have a good talk about Death Wish 2. Alright guys, that's going to do it for me on this video. My name is Jason. You are watching Backtrack Cinema. And I will see you on the next video. And I will see you in the movies, man. Cheers.
You